Join me as I dive into 10 fairy tales that are way darker than you remember, and see if they leave you shook like they did me. Fairy tales, those whimsical, fantastical stories that transport us to magical worlds and spark our imagination. But beneath their innocent facades, many of these tales hide dark, sinister elements that will leave you wondering how they ever became associated with childhood innocence. We often think of fairy tales as purely innocent stories meant for children, full of sugar and spice and everything nice. But the truth is, many of these tales have been sanitized over time to make them more palatable for younger audiences. Their original versions, on the other hand, were often meant to teach moral lessons and convey warnings about the dangers of the world. These darker elements were intentionally woven into the narrative to instill fear, obedience, and a sense of morality in their young listeners. In many cases, the original fairy tales were never meant for children at all, but rather served as cautionary tales for adults. These stories often dealt with mature themes like violence, death, and sexuality, which were meant to educate and even frighten their listeners into behaving. Yet, over time, these stories have been watered down, and their darker aspects have been lost in translation. But what if we were to uncover these hidden, darker truths? What if we were to delve into the original versions of these tales and expose the shocking elements that have been hidden from us? Would we still find them so innocent and charming? Or would we be left shook by the realization that our beloved fairy tales are not as pure as we once thought? Let's start with the tale of Little Mermaid, which is often portrayed as a romantic, underwater adventure. But in the original story by Hans Christian Andersen, the Little Mermaid does not get her happy ending. In fact, she dies at the end, turning into sea foam on the beach. Or take the story of Cinderella, where the wicked stepsisters cut off their toes to fit into the glass slipper, and are later punished by having their eyes pecked out by birds. In another tale, Snow White is forced to flee her kingdom and take refuge with a group of dwarves, who eventually discover the queen's plot to kill her. But in the original version, Snow White is not awakened by a kiss from Prince Charming, but rather by the prince's servants, who are carrying her coffin and trip, causing the piece of apple to be dislodged from her throat. And in the story of Sleeping Beauty, the princess is not just sleeping, but is actually in a coma, and is impregnated by the prince while she's unconscious. One of the most surprising and chilling twists comes from the tale of Beauty and the Beast. In the original story, Beauty's siblings are punished for their cruelty by being turned into animals, and are forced to wander the forest, seeking forgiveness. But what's truly shocking is that Beauty's father, who is often portrayed as a kind and loving character, is actually a cruel and abusive man who deserves his fate. These dark twists and turns are just the tip of the iceberg, and they add a whole new level of depth and intrigue to the stories we thought we knew. By exploring these hidden elements, we can gain a better understanding of the historical and cultural context in which these tales were written, and appreciate the complexity of the human experience. So, which of these dark fairy tales left you the most shook? Let me know in the comments below, and if you want to explore more intriguing content, be sure to check out my other video on the darker side of mythology. Thanks for watching, and until next time.